You might not want to miss Outer Banks if you enjoy mystery and adventure. Aside from the mystery and adventure, one of the intriguing aspects of the Outer Banks series that contributed to its thrilling effect were the lovable moments between John B and Sarah. Suppose you missed some memorable scenes between Sarah and John B? We have our top 10 moments between the pair. They are here for you to view. First up on the list is Sometimes Some Things Just Aren't Meant to Be in Season 2, Episode 7. Outer Banks slowed considerably after Ward's death and began to focus more on teen angst and turmoil. Pope and Key became buddies again, and everybody was focused on Sarah and John B. The love triangle took shape, and the misunderstanding trope was also included. Even if the conflict between the Pogues and Cooks was a little fabricated, it wasn't a major problem given the genre. The truth about Limbri and the connections she had to everything was undoubtedly one of the highlights of this, and Rafe lost his cool. This was just a quick recap of the entire episode. Now let's get to the moment between the two. Given the histories of their families, John B and Sarah were far from ideal. A brief breakup was inevitable because we anticipated that they would experience ups and downs over the season just like any other relationship. John B was unable to support her as she required after Ward Cameron's Charles Esten alleged demise. Can you really blame him? His dad was abandoned by Ward. Sincerely, the feelings are to blame. At the same instant, we experienced what they were feeling. Although neither of them intended it, they both knew it was for the best. Sarah and John B needed some time apart to process their grief before they could rekindle their relationship. Next on the list is Do You Want to Get Married? Season 2, Episode 1. When he began by asking Sarah if she wanted to get married, we knew right away that this season was going to be all about John B and Sarah. Sarah responded by saying no because he had no prospects. John B responded and stated that she too lacked any.
You want to get married?
No.
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 They had some of the finest lines with their flirtatious back and forth banter. Next on the list is I Got You in Season 2, Episode 10. With some major revelations and a ton of Season 3 narrative hooks built up, Outer Banks burst onto screens for the finale. Even though the infamous Netflix cliffhanger was frustrating, it appeared that the show would be renewed for a third season given its popularity. What did it signify for the children that John B's father was still alive? Limbri appeared to have collaborated with him, but it was unclear how far back in time it extended and how deep their relationship was. However, if their families had been on opposing sides of the fight for several centuries, it would certainly cause tension to rise between the Pope and John B. This episode's conclusion did a good job of mixing in action while keeping the tension high on the boat. How far these youngsters had come is further evidenced by the poetic manner in which John B and Ward were fighting, with the former being given the option of possibly disposing of Ward by throwing him into the water. The show also did a terrific job with the way it developed each of its supporting characters, and this season we saw Key and Pope's relationship fizzle out in the end when the two decided to remain friends. Although a little depressing, it at least kept the friendship alive. Now to the John B and Sarah moment. Sarah attempted to leave her home and return to John B, but she was unaware that he and the Pogues weren't still at OBX. John B intervened when Ward was almost choking Sarah to death while physically preventing her from entering the life raft. Sarah had to acknowledge her dad's flaws at this precise moment, which is regrettable. She needed to stop hoping that her father would pick her over Rafe since he was prepared to do anything, including hurt Sarah, to keep her away from the Pogues. In a sense, Sarah gave John B the go-ahead to murder her father, but he refrained. He was aware that if he did it, they would both come to regret it. That isn't who they are. John B prioritized their bond over his feelings for his father. Next on the list is Till Death Do Us Part. This episode is in Season 2, Episode 10, when John B approached Sarah and asked, Till death do us part? Following the Pogues' successful escape from the ship, it was somewhat reassuring. It didn't matter where they were stuck in the Caribbean as long as they had each other. The Pogues were all back together on a beach with some fierce surf, and everything was back to normal. Next on the list is I'll Sugar Mama You. I was hoping you would say that. In Season 2, Episode 4. During their clothing shopping trip in Season 1, Sarah may have said these precise words to John B. In Season 2, Sarah stole some cash so they could buy some food and fuel for the boat voyage home. Next on the list is John B, hold on. In Season 2, Episode 8. Here, Sarah didn't think twice before acting when John B was attacked by an alligator. alligator. She used a knife to scare the alligator away as she dove into the murky swamp water. Meanwhile, JJ had made a comment in which he joked about alligators. Next on the list is I Want to Have This Back. Will you take it? Season 2, Episode 9. Here, Ward Cameron staged his own demise to make a statement, and that was typical of him. At least one aspect of his personality that was reliable. It was a fantastic way to finish the episode where Ward returned, and it offered plenty of room for future developments. The teens continued their treasure hunt in the meantime, but this time they discovered themselves on a shipping container traveling to an unidentified location. But Ward Cameron was the series' true enemy, and Limbri hadn't presented enough of a threat or background for the audience to care about what she's attempted to accomplish. Now to the John B. and Sarah moment. Because John B. and Sarah were miserable apart, it seemed evident that they would get back together. The agony and longing were agonizing to observe. It was the time we had all looked forward to. John B. apologized for everything and made sure Sarah returned the bandana before she embarked on another death mission, where she confronted Rafe, Drew Starkey, and discovered what was in the truck. She gave the ideal response by kissing John B. They had perfect timing, always experiencing poignant moments in the midst of life or death circumstances. Next on the list is Hey Val, Hey Vlad, do you want to dance? In Season 2, Episode 1. One of the most dramatic scenes of the entire season was undoubtedly this one. John B. and Sarah managed to find a nice small amount of time to dance together in the middle of the hotel restaurant, despite the fact that they were on the run. The song Never in My Wildest Dreams by Dan Auerbach began to play as they were chowing down on food. The line, I get too choked up, is one of the most brilliant lines ever, not wanting to cause a scene. It was precious when the music began to play and they gazed at one another at the same time. They were both practically crying from the emotions they had experienced together. Sadly, the moment was lost after the hotel staff began to cheer. Next on the list is I Love You, Season 2, Episode 3. As John B. and Sarah eluded the law and were stranded at sea, the third episode of Outer Banks began to circle back to their cat and mouse chase and made matters worse as the gold got lost. Despite the gunfire moment, there were still unanswered questions regarding Terrence and Stubbs' whereabouts. While they did so, Key, Pope, and JJ set out on a road trip to visit the Foundation as part of their ongoing busy work search. This season's most heartbreaking incident was when John B. gave Sarah CPR and told her he loved her. After all, they could never have killed her. John B. would be a nervous wreck if she were taken away from him. We're not sure how Sarah survived being shot, but we're glad she did because they were split up so quickly after everything they'd been through together. Finally on the list, Can We Get a Dog? In Season 2, Episode 3. On the boat, John B. and Sarah exchanged their unofficial wedding vows after once more escaping from Ward and Rafe. What do they use in its place then? Of course, they rip a bit of his father's bandana off. Nothing could be more pokey than this, getting married while running in the middle of the Gulf. One of our favorite lines was probably when Sarah asked John B. if they could buy a puppy shortly after they got married. That is what made these two so wonderful. No matter how serious the circumstance, they always find a way to make it more humorous. Given that their relationship is now deeper, we should anticipate seeing more scenes from John B. and Sarah in the upcoming season, which is rumored to start sometime in 2023. But for now, let's stick with the top 10 John B. and Sarah moments listed below. Subscribe and like. We'll see you in the next video.